pleased to be here. I'm Dr. Daniel K. Podolsky, president of UT Southwestern. This being my ninth session, I'm reminded once again about the difficult task that you have on behalf of the state of Texas to apply your wisdom and judgment to the optimal deployment of the assets of the state on behalf of all of its citizens, and realizing that even in a session when revenue has far surpassed original projections, still the needs are even greater, and that need for that wisdom ever important. I also want to thank you for your consideration in the introduced Senate Bill 1 in funding UT Southwestern and higher education institutions. Out of respect for your time, I will briefly cover the first 5 or 6 slides in the deck you have before you and leave the institutional data which are included in the appendix for your reference as you choose to review them. So if I can draw your attention to slide 2, you see there the UT Southwestern institutional mission. As an academic medical center, we strive every day to train the next generation of healthcare providers and scientists, to care for patients in need of help today, and to conduct the research that we know will improve the care we provide and people's lives in the years ahead. This is all for a singular mission, which is to allow people to lead the healthy lives that allow them to fulfill their full potential. If I now turn your attention to slide 3, you see there external benchmarking around the way in which we approach delivering on each of those components of the mission. I won't cite each of the various benchmarks that are included on that page, but say that in general, they are chosen as ones which are based on quantifiable metrics. And then to really make a few specific points. One, in relationship to the clinical care we provide, that it is care that we strive to do at the various highest level, and with that, the UT Southwestern Health System, our Clements University Hospital, has been rated the number 1 or 2 hospital in Texas for the last 7 years. Among the honor roll of the U.S. News and Report, meaning the top 21 hospitals of the 4,500 or more hospitals in this country. As importantly, as you will see in the appendix, a map of Texas, our patients are coming not only, as you would expect, from the North Texas area, but from every corner of the state, including every Senate district, every House district. And equally importantly, our graduates and trainees are now providing cares practicing in every Senate district across the state. The last point I'll call your attention to on this slide is one that I expect will be particularly meaningful, and that was a benchmark by Banknote, which identified UT Southwestern as the highest value of any medical school in the country because of the quality of the education provided for the cost of the school. And of course, that latter is only possible because of the investments you've made in supporting UT Southwestern, and of course, all of the public medical schools across the state. With that, I'd like to ask you to turn your attention to slide 4 and really focus on what has been a distinguishing feature of UT Southwestern, driving excellence across all its missions, and that is in the research that has been carried out there over decades now, and in your investment in that. And I want to thank you once again for having sustained the funding of our mission-specific formula, focused on our performance in delivering growth in our research mission, which has resulted in an ROI of $11 for every $1 invested into UT Southwestern through the research formula. We are deeply grateful that you have funded in SB 1 the growth in that formula, and while preserving the methodology which was carefully worked out working with you and with LBB as the foundation for a formula which would act in a dynamic fashion to incentivize and drive the growth that we all wanted to see in the research enterprise at UT Southwestern in Texas. And to see just how compelling that logic was, I ask you to turn to slide 5, which compares the growth of UT Southwestern research expenditures in the pre-mission-specific formula era to the last several years since it was first implemented as a pilot and then established as a more formal, permanent mechanism in the ensuing sessions. And what you see is the rate of increase has essentially tripled from 2.7% a year in growth in research expenditures to 9.1%. Translating that, as you'll see as a note on the slide, that's $50 million of incremental research funding year over year. And that's not just the same 50 million, I'm talking about compounding, so that during the last 5 or 6 years, with that formula in place, our research enterprise has gone from $460 million to $760 million in the most recent fiscal year, FY24. So I hope you are left no doubt that the decisions you made to reformat the way you were supporting UT Southwestern in this mission is delivering on the expectation to bring dollars, grow a research enterprise, and that's before accounting for the improvements in health from the discoveries and the economic development of the discoveries that those expenditures have enabled. With that, I would like to ask you to turn to slide 6 to address another request of UT Southwestern. If, as you work through all of the complexities of the budget, there is room for a further investment, and I bring this request to you mindful of comments from Chair Huffman about always being interested in hearing about a good research idea for the future. And here I want to make note of one of the areas that I certainly myself believe, but I'm far from alone, promises transformational change in the capabilities of treating disorders which now are either incompletely treated or hardly have any treatment at all. And that's through the broad category of interventions called cell therapy or gene therapy. This has already begun to revolutionize the treatment of many cancers. You will have heard of CAR T cells, but it's now clear that some of those principles can be applied much more broadly to autoimmune disorders, for example. And we believe UT Southwestern, with its research prowess, with some of the talents we have on campus, and frankly, a recent recruit of one of the national leaders, would put us in a position to really catapult Texas to the forefront of this new frontier of medicine. We're asking if there is the means to support it for a exceptional item that would be time limited. We would hope it would be continued for a second biennium if you're able to fund it in this biennium. But thereafter, we believe the momentum that it will create will be the flywheel which will allow us to continue to fund it beyond that. So with that, I again want to thank you for all you've done to support UT Southwestern, all you do on behalf of the state, and I would be very glad to address any questions you may have.
Thank you. Senator West.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Dr. Podolsky, and all of the faculty and staff at UT Southwestern. Great jobs you're doing there. I've got about 2 or 3 questions I want to ask you. As it relates to the research that you're doing there at UT Southwestern, what has resulted in terms of treatment and also commercialization?
Well, thank you for the question, Senator Weston. Thank you also for all the ways in which you challenge and encourage us as our senator there in the district.
I encourage you.
Okay. The challenge is a good thing. I use that as a good word.
I know it.
So I would say there is now a long record of translation of UT discoveries made in the laboratory benches of UT Southwestern into the practice of medicine and impacting health worldwide. The quintessential example, and the original one, was the discoveries by Brown and Goldstein of a basic mechanism for how our bodies regulate cholesterol as the framework which led to the insights that led to the development of statin drugs. And with that being taken by literally tens of millions of people worldwide and actually having bent the curve on cardiovascular morbidity and mortality in the U.S. and beyond. That continues to the present day. There is the more recent class of anti-cholesterol drugs, even more powerful than the statins, the PCSK9 inhibitors, and those were really advanced by discoveries through the Dallas Heart Study under our McDermott Center for Genetic Discovery, and are an instance, perhaps you might say, of lightning striking twice, in terms of a profound impact on how we approach the broad health fallout from unregulated cholesterol and obesity. At this point, to put it in a summary point, there are well in excess of 15 treatments across a broad area of different unmet or undermet medical needs that had their roots on the benches of UT Southwestern. And as a consequence, as they have moved out of our institution and into the commercialization environment, have generated in aggregate in excess of $3 billion of economic investment that has been the engine for that commercialization.
Speaking about commercialization, you're proposing the Cell and Gene Therapy Center there at UT Southwestern. Talk about that and commercialization.
Yeah. Well, I do think that, as I've said already, there's going to be profoundly, transforming new treatments that will be using the vehicle of cells or genes yet to come. But they will only happen by, once again, taking discoveries in an academic environment by UT Southwestern and getting them into commercialization. I think, to make a point that I didn't touch on already, I should acknowledge, this is not a state secret, at UT Southwestern. There is a race on across some of the finest academic medical centers and already in the for-profit biotech startup environment to capture the value that's clearly going to be there. So as much as this Center for Cell Therapy that we hope you will help invest in will lead to profoundly better treatments for patients in need of them, it's going to be a huge driver of commercial development.
And lastly, what is UT Southwestern doing to increase the access to care just broadly across the communities?
Well, I did mention that as much as UT Southwestern's campus is in Dallas, our patients are already coming from every part of the state. But if I think about North Texas, we have been very focused over the last 10 years in making access more convenient and more convenient across all the communities of North Texas. So at this point, UT Southwestern, in addition to all the services we provide on its campus, has 24 other sites, and those include sites north, as far as north as Frisco, to the west in Fort Worth, and to the south at Redbird. And we have felt it's really important in thinking about how we expand and we get closer to patients to meet them where they are, to use that phrase. We are thinking about all communities. And I know I don't have to tell you, the South Dallas area has been underserved. And we've heard the comment made by a number of my colleagues from the other institutions about the zip code. It shouldn't determine your health. And yet, as much as there are those striking differences we heard about between rural and urban, and it was specifically referred to the North Dallas, there are even greater between North Dallas and South Dallas. So we are being purposeful as we identify new sites for our satellites to be sure they are addressing the breadth of all the communities of North Texas.
And members, let me say this to you. Making certain that we are providing health care to people throughout the entire North Central Texas community. And Dr. Podolsky just mentioned to you the Redbird area. The Redbird area was an area where there was a giant shopping center. It was a mega shopping center where people from all over would come to the shopping center to shop. And it fell into disrepair. It was purchased by a developer, and knowing that that was an area that needed health care, access to health care, UT Southwestern, being mindful of its fiduciary duty in order to provide access to health care, worked with the developer and also Parkland Hospital in order to put facilities in that shopping center. And as a result of that, people were able to go to the shopping center, get access to health care, but in addition, we begin to see more and more shops open up, economic development in that particular area. In fact, there's a Chick-fil-A over there now, okay? And so I'm real proud of the the thinking, forward thinking that UT Southwestern has had in terms of providing health care throughout the community, but also working with others to build up the community. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Zaffarini? Oh, you tore off your light. Sorry. Senator Colcourse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you, Dr. Podolsky.
Thank you, Senator.
You've heard our robust conversation about GME, clinical rotations. Y'all have your own hospital. Do you have any problems out? Do you use more than just your own hospital? What's the picture that y'all are seeing in Dallas?
Yeah, so, we have both our own hospital and health system, but also partners who have been essential to UT Southwestern since, day one. And so both our medical student rotations and our GME footprint spans the University Hospital, Parkland Hospital, Children's Medical Center, and now in a clinically integrated network we have established over the last several years with Texas Health Resources, a major community-based health system, also into their major facility
Fort Worth.
in Dallas.
In Dallas.
It was Presbyterian Hospital, now is Texas Health
Okay.
Dallas. And so part of why, we look at that expanse, we want to make sure our students and our residents have the experience of taking care of all kinds of community, the entire socioeconomic spectrum, and it's to give them the full diversity of exposure to medicine from, the most basic and essential primary care to, the most, complicated care that you'd only see in a quaternary center like UT Southwestern. We do have the means to be sure that we have the, that even our large medical school class, and we graduate about 240 medical students each year, are able to be accommodated. There is another challenge, I will just say, beyond the very real ones you heard from Dr. Klotman and others in the course of the day, and that is the changing pressures on the practitioners to be able to have the time to provide the supervision and teaching, working alongside your student and resident. I can tell you from personal experience, it's a lot more efficient to just do the care yourself than, to be there supervising the student, resident, or fellow. And as the realities of clinical practice have become less forgiving, more and more pressure of time and productivity because of a number of factors, including just the reimbursements. You're finding fewer. I'll say this: it takes that much more of a commitment from the physician, your faculty member, to say, I'm going to be sure that I nonetheless, pay it forward in terms of being that teacher, being that supervisor. So that's a significant part of the challenge, and the economics, as you think about it, is in some ways, I would hope to include how you ransom some time so that those who could supervise actually do supervise.
So UT Southwestern obviously ranked very high in our nation. You have a lot of specialties. We've had some conversation about primary care physicians. Do you all focus on that, or is it time for us to kind of silo different med schools? We have a lot of med schools, and so do we say, hey, UT Southwestern produces great specialists? Look at UT Austin, and a third of their class is primary care. Maybe we should get that to half. What do you see in the future? You've been around a long time. How long have you been coming here?
This is my ninth session.
18 years, I think.
If I make it.
Long time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think first of all, there are a lot of factors that do go in ultimately to the path that a student chooses. When they get to that choice towards the end of medical school, of what training am I going to pursue there? And for some, it's exactly what they thought they were going to do when they applied to medical school. But for many, I would say most, an experience during medical school, just open their eyes to something they didn't know about, and it may have been the practice itself, may have been just the teacher or the supervisor. So there is a limited ability to engineer this, because I do think, as someone said, I'm sorry I don't recall who earlier in the day, the decisions a student will make are not, for most of them, I'm very glad to say, not they're going to look at, well, what's the compensation here, and there. So there are some. Having said that, I do agree with the comment that they need to get an experience, and all of our students get the experience of primary care, and an experience which shows it for all the satisfactions that it can have. So yes, I think there are ways in which one school versus another
Let's
might
get
be
together
more
and
enriched.
talk about that. And then the other thing I want to build on is Center West talked about commercialization. We had a lively conversation with CPRIT on return on investment. We're considering DPRIT. I think that the taxpayer dollars go into whether it's your gene therapy or so forth. And I love your charts on the economic impact. But is there a day where we look at it as we're truly a partner with y'all and that we could create some kind of evergreen fund where actually the investment does come back, that we share on the commercialization, that we push our med schools harder on that side to ultimately get it to market, to realize the dollars instead of just giving it to Pfizer or to giving it to the big corporations that then gobble up our great research?
That would be in some ways we have that conversation with ourselves at the institutional level. I think that would be a very interesting conversation to have, to think about it on the state level. I will say, in my comment about hoping there might be the ability and the will to support that new center, that it would become self-supporting. It's with the expectation that the flywheel is going to generate external funding first, but also commercial dollars to reinvest in it.
Good.
So I believe that can happen.
I think there's a new day coming, and I look forward to working with you. And my last comment to you would be, I remember during COVID, and you said that y'all had the ability to search in a database every current drug that was out there, and you were looking for a match to see if there was something out there that would help. I love that kind of thinking in solving. You've heard me say over and over, I think there needs to be a new day in medicine. There needs to be an introspective look on where we are today, and especially in America. And as we move forward, come see me in my office and we'll work through this and other issues.
Terrific. Thank you.